The metallic taste of blood filled Lieutenant Ethan Drake's mouth as consciousness dragged him back to reality. His wrists burned where crystalline shackles bit into flesh, suspending him in a kneeling position. The chamber around him pulsed with bioluminescent veins, organic walls that breathed in rhythm with some unseen heart. He'd been captured during the Battle of Meridian Station. 3 months of guerrilla warfare against an enemy humanity barely understood had ended with his squad vaporized and him taken. The throne room stretched impossibly high, supported by pillars that seemed grown rather than built. Alien guards lined the walls, tall, armored beings with weapons that hummed with lethal energy. Their faces remained hidden behind reflective visors, but Ethan felt their eyes weighing him, measuring his worth. Then she entered. Queen Varys moved like liquid shadow, her form both terrible and mesmerizing. 7 feet of lean muscle wrapped in midnight blue skin that shimmered with constellation patterns. Her eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle on her angular face, glowed amber in the chamber's dim light. A crown of what looked like crystallized starlight grew organically from her skull, extending backward like a mane. She wore armor that clung to every curve, every powerful line of her body. It left her shoulders and arms bare, revealing intricate bioluminescent tattoos that crawled across her skin like living things. Ethan had seen her before, in briefings, in nightmares. The conqueror of 12 worlds, the architect of humanity's likely extinction. She ascended her throne, a living construct of bone and crystal that seemed to embrace her. For long minutes, she simply watched him, studied him. Her expression remained unreadable, though something flickered in those 3 luminous eyes, curiosity perhaps, or calculation. With a gesture so subtle Ethan almost missed it, she dismissed her guards. They filed out without question, without hesitation. The massive doors, organic valves that dilated rather than swung, sealed shut with a wet sound that made his stomach turn. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Queen Varys rose from her throne with predatory grace. Each step toward him seemed deliberate, measured. She circled him slowly, and Ethan forced himself to keep his eyes forward, his breathing steady. Show no fear. Give them nothing. She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her body, could smell something like ozone and exotic flowers. When she leaned down, her face mere inches from his, those 3 eyes seemed to pierce through to his very soul. "Prove your loyalty," she whispered, her voice like silk over steel. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He froze, mind racing through scenarios, each worse than the last. What did she want? Military secrets? Locations of hidden bases? For him to betray everything and everyone he'd ever fought for? His silence seemed to amuse her. One corner of her mouth curved upward in something that might have been a smile. Queen Varys straightened, walking back toward her throne, but not sitting. Instead, she turned to face him, arms crossed beneath her breast. The movement drew Ethan's attention despite himself. She was alien, yes, but the fundamental architecture of femininity transcended species. "You misunderstand," she said, those amber eyes studying his face. "I have no interest in your military intelligence, your pathetic fleet positions, your laughable defensive strategies." Ethan bristled at the casual dismissal, but kept his mouth shut. "What I need," she continued, beginning to pace, "is far more valuable, and far more dangerous." She paused, seemed to consider her words carefully. "Tell me, Lieutenant Ethan Drake, do you know anything of Thalorian politics?" He blinked, caught off guard. "No, of course not. Why would you? You're too busy dying for a war you cannot win." She moved to a section of the wall where the bioluminescence intensified, showing what looked like a star map. "My empire spans 47 systems, hundreds of billions of lives, and it is rotting from within." Her hand touched the wall, and the image shifted, showing faces, alien faces, different from hers, but sharing similar features. Her species, Ethan realized. Her people. A rebellion grows in my court, not from conquered worlds. They learned long ago the futility of resistance. No, This cancer comes from within my own bloodline. Cousins, generals, advisors, all plotting to see me fall. She turned back to him, and for the first time, Ethan saw something other than predatory confidence in her expression. Weariness, maybe even fear. I have resources, Varys continued. Technology, warriors, spies embedded in every layer of my government, but I lack one critical thing, someone incorruptible. Someone with no stake in Thalorian power games. Someone impossible to predict or control. Understanding dawned slowly. You want me? Humans are chaos incarnate, she said, moving closer again. Your species shouldn't exist, biochemically unstable, mentally erratic, socially fractious. Every model we built predicted your extinction before achieving spaceflight. Yet here you are, spreading like a virus across the cosmos. She reached out and Ethan tensed, but her fingers only touched the shackles. They dissolved like smoke, and he collapsed forward, catching himself on hands that had gone numb. That unpredictability, Varys murmured, is precisely what I need. My enemies can read Thalorians. They've spent centuries learning every cultural tells, every biological response. But you... She tilted her head, studying him like a fascinating puzzle. You they cannot predict. You they cannot buy. You they cannot truly threaten, because you already expect to die. Ethan rubbed his wrists, forcing blood back into his hands. So what? You want me to be your, what? Bodyguard? Assassin? Detective? The word hung in the air between them. There is a traitor in my inner circle. Someone highly placed, trusted, with access to my private chambers. Tonight, before the twin moons reach zenith, midnight by your reckoning, this traitor will make their move. A assassination attempt designed to look like an accident. She crouched down to his level, bringing those 3 eyes level with his 2. The intensity of her gaze made something in his chest tighten. Find them. Expose them. Save my life. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. And I will give you something your entire species has been dying for, a chance. Queen Varys led him through corridors that defied human architecture, spaces that seemed to fold in on themselves, gravity that shifted with each turn. She'd given him access to her private data network, a neural interface that sat like cold metal against his temple, flooding his mind with information. 8 suspects, all high-ranking members of her court, all with motive, means, and opportunity. The first was General Corvin, her military commander. Built like a battle tank with scars that told stories of 1,000 campaigns. He watched Ethan with undisguised contempt as they met in the war room. A human, Corvin spat. She trusts you over her own kind? Apparently, she has reason to. Ethan studied the tactical displays, noting the general's troop movements. Several divisions repositioning near the capital. Could be standard rotation. Could be preparation for a coup. Next came High Priestess Ilara, keeper of their ancient texts and spiritual advisor. She moved like a whisper, her silver-white skin covered in prayer scars. When she looked at Ethan, her eyes held something between pity and curiosity. The queen walks a dangerous path, Ilara said softly. Power without faith is merely tyranny waiting to collapse. Was that a threat? A warning? Or just philosophy? Hours blurred together as Ethan interviewed advisors, examined security protocols, traced supply chains for poisons that might work on Thalorian physiology. His head pounded from the neural interface, information scrolling through his consciousness faster than he could consciously process. Varys appeared at intervals, checking his progress. Each time, she seemed more tense, that regal composure developing hairline cracks. During the 4th hour, she found him in the palace archives, surrounded by holographic records. Nothing concrete yet, he admitted, rubbing his eyes. But the pattern's there. Small inconsistencies. Scheduled changes. Resources being moved. Someone's preparing for something. She moved behind him, looking over his shoulder at the data. Her breath was warm against his neck, not unpleasant despite everything. When her hand settled on his shoulder, he felt the strength in those fingers, the barely restrained power. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. Your people would call this treason. Ethan was quiet for a moment. My people are dying in a war we can't win. If there's even a chance this leads somewhere better, he turned to look at her. Besides, you're right. I expect to die. Might as well make it count. Something shifted in her expression. Those three eyes seemed to see him, truly see him, for the first time as something other than a tool or curiosity. I have killed thousands of your kind, Varys said, her voice carrying unexpected weight. Ordered campaigns that burned your colonies. Watched your ships break against my fleets like waves against stone. Why do you not hate me? I do. The honesty surprised even him. But hate's exhausting. And right now, we have 5 hours until midnight. Their eyes held for a long moment. Then Varys did something that shocked him. She laughed. A genuine sound, rich and unexpected. You are either the bravest human I've met, she said, or the most foolish. Probably both. The moment broke when an alert flashed across the neural interface. Energy fluctuations in the throne room. Someone accessing restricted areas. They moved together, Varys's hand going to a weapon at her hip, something that looked organic, grown rather than forged. Ethan grabbed a guard's pulse rifle from a wall mount, checking the charge. The throne room's doors dilated before them, revealing darkness beyond. The throne room had transformed. Gone was the soft bioluminescence. Now, harsh emergency lighting cast everything in sharp relief and deep shadow. Varys tensed beside Ethan, her weapon rising. A trap, she breathed. No. Ethan's eyes scanned the space, tactical training kicking in. A stage. Someone wants an audience. From the shadows behind the throne, a figure emerged. Not one of the 8 suspects Ethan had been investigating, someone he hadn't even considered. Caliph, the Queen's younger sister. She moved with the same predatory grace as Varys, but where the Queen carried herself with controlled power, Caliph radiated barely contained rage. Her bioluminescent markings glowed angry crimson instead of Varys's calm blue. Sister, Caliph said, the word dripping venom. Still clinging to your throne? Still pretending you're worthy to lead our people? Varys's expression hardened. Caliph, I should have known. The rebellion, the assassination attempt, all you, me, and 3 generals, and half the priesthood, and colonies across 7 systems who are tired of your weakness. Caliph circled them slowly. You've grown soft, Varys, making alliances with prey species, showing mercy to the conquered. Our ancestors would spit on your name. Our ancestors, Varys countered, her voice cold as space, conquered 12 civilizations and drove 3 to extinction. Their legacy is fear and ashes. I'm building something better. You're building nothing. Caliph's voice rose. You're letting our empire rot while you play politician. Well, no more. Tonight, the old ways return. The doors behind them sealed shut. From the shadows, guards appeared, not Varys's loyal soldiers, but others wearing different insignia, rebellion forces. Ethan counted quickly. 20 armed combatants, all with weapons trained on them. The odds were impossible. You're outnumbered, sister, Caliph purred. Surrender the crown. Abdicate. I'll make it quick. Painless, even. A mercy you don't deserve. Varys stood straighter, every inch the queen. I will die before I surrender to a coward who strikes from shadows. Then die. Caliph's hand rose, signaling her guards. But Ethan was already moving. His first shot took out the emergency lights on the left side. Darkness flooded in, and he dove right, pulling Varys with him. Return fire lit up the space they'd occupied seconds before, plasma bolts scorching the floor. The throne, Varys hissed in his ear. Get me to the throne. They moved together through the chaos, Varys's strength surprising him as she half-carried, half-dragged him through cover fire. His rifle barked again and again, and he felt a grim satisfaction when screams echoed in response. They reached the throne just as Caliph's forces began to reorganize. Varys placed her hand on the living construct, and something changed in the air, a thrumming that Ethan felt in his bones. The throne room's walls came alive. Bioluminescent veins pulsed with energy, and suddenly defensive systems that had been dormant roared to life. Automated weapons deployed from organic ports. Energy barriers materialized. The palace itself had become their weapon. Kalitha's forces scattered, but they didn't retreat. The fight devolved into brutal close combat. Ethan found himself back-to-back with Varys, his rifle empty, reduced to using it as a club. She fought with that organic weapon, something between a blade and a whip that cut through armor like paper. In the chaos, he saw Caliph closing on them, her own weapon blazing. Varys turned to face her sister, and for a moment, Ethan saw genuine pain in the queen's eyes. "Please," Varys whispered, "don't make me do this." Too late for mercy, sister. Caliph lunged, and Ethan made a choice he couldn't explain. He stepped between them, taking the blow meant for Varys. Pain exploded across his chest as energy seared through flesh. He felt ribs crack, smelled his own burning skin. But he didn't go down. Instead, he grabbed Kalitha's weapon hand, twisted, and drove his forehead into her face with every ounce of strength he had left. Ethan woke in silk sheets that felt like liquid against his skin. The pain in his chest had dulled to a manageable ache, and when he looked down, he saw advanced medical dressings covering the burn wound, glowing slightly, infused with healing nanites. The room around him was vast, luxurious in an alien way. Walls that breathed softly. Furniture that seemed to have grown from the floor. Massive windows showing a view of the capital city below, crystalline spires reaching toward twin moons. "You're awake." Varys sat in a chair beside the bed, still in her armor but looking exhausted. Those 3 amber eyes studied him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "How long?" His voice came out rough. 18 hours. You nearly died." She stood, moving to a table where a decanter of something luminescent sat. She poured 2 glasses. The medical team said another inch to the left, and the energy blast would have stopped your heart. She handed him a glass. The liquid inside tasted like starlight and honey, burning pleasantly down his throat. "Caliph," he asked, "in a detention cell, along with her conspirators. The rebellion is broken." Varys sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that he could see the faint shimmer of her skin, the way her bioluminescent markings pulsed in time with her heartbeat. "You saved my life, Ethan Drake. Threw yourself between me and death without hesitation. Seemed like the right move at the time." He tried to sit up, winced. Are you safe now?" "For now. There will be others. There always are." She was quiet for a moment, then, "I told you I needed someone incorruptible. Someone unpredictable. You prove that beyond doubt. So what now? I've proven my loyalty. Do I get that chance you promised?" Varys's expression shifted, softened in a way he hadn't seen before. "I'm offering more than a chance. I'm offering a position. As my personal advisor. My partner in this endeavor to build something better than what my ancestors created. Your people will never accept a human in that role. Then they will learn." Her hand touched his face, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. The touch sent electricity through his nerves. "You did not kneel, Ethan. When offered the chance to serve like a slave, you refused. When given power over my enemies, you chose mercy for my sister instead of revenge. You chose to protect rather than exploit." She leaned closer and Ethan's breath caught. This close, he could see the complexity of her markings, not random patterns but something like constellation maps, telling stories in a language he didn't speak but somehow understood. "I have lived for 2 of your centuries," Varys whispered, "led armies, conquered worlds, shaped the fate of billions. But I have never met anyone like you. I'm just a soldier," he managed, "one who got lucky. You're the man who saw a monster and chose to trust her." Her lips, softer than he'd imagined, brushed against his, the man who stepped between death and duty without thought of reward. The kiss deepened, and Ethan felt the world narrow to just this moment, the alien queen who had become somehow human in her vulnerability, the warmth of her body against his, the way her hands tangled in his hair with surprising gentleness. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Varys rested her forehead against his. "The galaxy is watching," she murmured. "They will see you not as my prisoner, but as my chosen, my equal, the human who stood beside the queen and lived. They'll see me as a target too," Ethan pointed out. "Yes." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes, and he saw the truth there. The danger, the impossible odds, the certainty that this path would be hard beyond measure. "But you're already used to that, aren't you?" He thought of his squad, dead on Meridian, of the war that had seemed so clear-cut until a queen whispered for loyalty and showed him a different kind of courage. "Yeah," he said finally, pulling her back down to him. "I am." Outside the window, the twin moons reached their zenith, bathing the city in silver light. And in the queen's private chambers, a human and an alien forged something new, not conqueror and conquered, not enemy and prize, but two souls choosing trust in a galaxy built on fear. The war would continue. Enemies would rise. The path ahead promised danger at every turn. But tonight, in the warm darkness, Ethan Drake and Queen Varys rewrote the rules of engagement, one heartbeat at a time.